I am Arpit and I'm here with today's analysis. Today is 13th of April and the topic which we are going to discuss today is a very important topic, not only from UPSC prelims point of view, but from the mains point of view also. India's climate policy. Now, climate change is a reality. It is a fact. And it is also a fact that this climate change or global warming happening today is due to the historical emissions emitted by the developed countries of today. The developing countries like India are not responsible for historical emissions. No doubt India is the third largest emitter nowadays. But if we see India's share in historical emissions or in total emissions in the atmosphere, it is only 3%. But still, India has understood its responsibilities very well and has chalked out a proper plan for tackling climate change despite being a developing country and despite having no obligations to do that. We have achieved our INDCs, we have launched International Solar Alliance, we have launched Mission Life, we have launched the Center for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure, and many such steps. And our climate policy is considered to be one of the most successful policies all over the world. So, we will look into this thing or this particular topic, which is a very broad topic in itself. And, A to Z, everything with respect to climate change, we are going to tackle over here. Actually, the beginning of global warming or climate change at international level was 1990s, when in 1992 the Rio Earth Summit happened. However, this Rio Earth Summit was not the very first time we were discussing about global warming or climate change at the global level. We were not. We actually did this Stockholm conference in the year 1972, and that was the first global meeting with respect to global warming or climate change. But nothing concrete happened. It was 20 years down the line that this Rio Earth Summit in 1992 was conducted, and in this Rio Earth Summit, three frameworks were adopted. First was United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC, Convention on Biodiversity, UNCBD. The other day we were talking about UNCBD when we were discussing about invasive species, because there was a definition given by CBD on invasive species. And the third was United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification. So UNFCCC, UNCBD and UNCCD, these three were adopted in the Rio Earth Summit. All of them have their own pace of conducting meetings. Each of the meeting is called as COP, that is Conference of Parties. And all three of them are interconnected. Exclusively, UNFCCC deals with climate change or global warming. But, if you apply common sense, isn't climate change or global warming related to biological diversity? If there is a lot of pollution, climate change is happening, frequent disasters are coming, or heat waves are there, temperatures are increasing, definitely it will have an impact on the biological diversity of this planet. There will be more and more desertification due to increasing heat. So all three are interconnected with each other, but for the, I would say, implementation sake or for administrative purpose, they have been trifurcated into three separate conventions. So this was the beginning. And, after Rio, divisions of climate change and biodiversity in India's then Ministry of Environment and Forest came to life slowly and steadily. So basically, India's Ministry of Environment became more and more active after 1992's Rio Earth Summit. The next big question is that who is responsible for climate change or global warming? Actually, it is the developed countries of today. And it is a proven fact, because if we see the amount of emissions in the atmosphere right now, the contribution done by the developed countries of today, which were developing at that time, is more. No doubt about the fact that China is number 1 emitter, USA number 2 emitter, India number 3 emitter. But China and India in these top 3 are developing countries. China is the largest emitter since the last 15 years. But if we see China's share in overall emissions in the atmosphere, it is only 11%. India is the third largest emitter since the last 10-11 years. But if we see India's share in the global emissions in the atmosphere, it is only 3%. So, who dominates in these historical emissions? It is the developed countries of today, which were developing at that time. Those countries did those emissions. A question might be coming to your mind, sir, those emissions done by that time, back then, are they still relevant today? Actually, yes. A carbon dioxide molecule has this gestation period or a lifetime of 150 to 200 years, and it is suspended in the atmosphere and can cause global warming for this much or these many years. So this is basically the scenario. Now, climate change has come to occupy center stage in our lives, and it is truly a global collective action challenge. We have to collectively act for it. By only stating that developed countries are responsible for it, I do not mean that they have to tackle this. Global warming or climate change will not be tackled if the developing or underdeveloped countries also not board on the train. There should be more responsibility taken by the developed countries because they are responsible. They have earned the money. They have that investment, I would say, to do. The developing and underdeveloped countries do not have that investment to do. But yes, whatever possible, wherever possible, the developing countries and the underdeveloped countries should also contribute. Then only we will be able to tackle this. Now, according to a study published in the Lancet, reference period of this study was 1970 to 2017. The United States and Europe were responsible for majority of global ecological damage caused by the overuse of natural resource. Overuse of natural resource, let's suppose you are diverting a lot of land towards commercialization. You're cutting trees, diverting land towards commercialization or urbanization. That is overuse of natural resources. That will definitely lead to, I would say, more and more emissions. US accounts for 27% of the world's excess material use, means US has used 27% more. Overuse of natural resources is by 27% in USA. So EU 25%. Other rich countries like Australia, Canada, Japan, Saudi Arabia were collectively responsible for 22%. Largely, these are high income countries. So if I consider all the high income countries, so 74% excess use of resources is done by them. What about developing countries? Only one developing country, that is China, has overused by 15%. Apart from it, on the same reference period, 58 countries representing 3.6 billion people, that is roughly half the population, not exactly half, but roughly half the population. India, Indonesia, Pakistan, Nigeria, and Bangladesh stayed within their sustainability limits. Means they did not overuse the natural resources. Overusing the natural resources is causing global warming or climate change. Because I gave you that example of land getting diverted for commercialization or for urbanization. Now, earlier that land had trees. Trees were acting like carbon sinks. They used to take in carbon dioxide, give oxygen. Now there are less trees. And on that land, emissions have increased. So, use of natural resources in such a way that it is increasing pollution or it is increasing greenhouse gases, and which is leading to global warming or climate change. But in India, thankfully, we have not overused. India is within the limits of its sustainability. The high income countries must reduce resources by at least 70% from existing levels to reach the sustainability range. Sustainability range is when you are maintaining a balance between the natural resources conservation and development. You are not diverting the natural resources for development that much. This is basically you learn to live in harmony with the natural resources on one side by conserving them and on the other side exploiting them for economic usage. So that is very difficult to achieve, but yes, that should be done. Now, what is India's climate policy? See, to understand India's climate policy, we have to consider 5 determinants first. One is geography of India. Second is population of India, which is the highest now, according to many estimates. Third is impacts of global warming or climate change on India. Fourth is worldview, what the world thinks and what we have, I would say, shown it to the world, and the actions taken by us. From these 5 major determinants, we will determine the climate policy of India. So, or the climate policy of India has been determined. So, first is geography. Land mass of 3.28 million square kilometers. These are facts which most of you might be knowing it, but yes, since they were there in the article, so I had to mention. 2.4% of the world's geographic land surface area and 4% of the world's freshwater resources. These are there. India is the 7th largest country in the world in terms of area. It is one of the 17 mega biodiverse countries having 4 biodiversity hotspots, 10 biogeographic zones, and 22 agro-biodiversity hotspots. India experiences 6 different seasons, and its civilization and economy have developed in harmony with this seasonal cycle. In recent decades, climate change has disrupted harmony between the natural resources and the people. In India also it has done, but thankfully till now we have not overused the natural resources. We are within our sustainability limits, as we have seen in the previous slides. So it is like this. Population 1.4 billion is the population, and by God's grace, it is going to increase only. We are not going to stop here. We have projections that by 2070 the population stability will come. But let's see if it comes then also, or it is delayed by then also. But till 2070 our population is going to increase, and we have surpassed China according to multiple estimates. However, the exact, I would say, outcome of this particular figure will be from the census. Now, it is 1/6 of humanity living in our country. It is home to 7 to 8% of the world's recorded species, with more than 45,500 species of plants and 91,000 species of animals documented so far. The human to land ratio is very low. Human to land means how many humans are living in what proportion of land, and it is 0.0021 square kilometers. So basically in 1 square kilometer, this simply means that in 1 square kilometer, 0.0021 square kilometers only is occupied by humans for living. The other is left for natural resources. The other is left uninhabited. For whatever purpose it is used, it can be used for any other purpose, but humans are not living over there. This figure states that, and this figure in itself, clearly highlights that the natural resources have been less diverted in our country. The population density of our country means in 1 square kilometer how many people are living. It is 384 according to the census of 2011. Now let us see according to census 2021, which is expected to be released this year or the next year, probably next year only. Let's see what happens then. Next is impact. Now the Global Climate Risk Index of 2020 prepared by this German watch puts India as the 5th most affected country in terms of experiencing extreme weather events, a sharp rise from its 14th position in 2017. The extreme weather events have increased. The Indian Ocean region has experienced 4 cyclonic storms in the last year, that is 2023. The general average was somewhere around 2, and these events are due to climate change or global warming. The World Bank report on the impact of climate change on South Asia predicts that rising temperatures and changing monsoon rainfall patterns could cost India 2.8% of its GDP and depress living standards of nearly half the country's population by 2050. So definitely impacts are there. Now the worldview of India's climate policy, how the world perceives. Now our worldview, or how we see or how we project ourselves in the world. This would be more appropriate. Now our worldview is shaped by our ancestors, living in harmony and consonance with nature. Many of our ancestors, like Mahatma Gandhi, gave that slogan, there is enough for everyone's need but not for everyone's greed. Or Rabindranath Tagore's, I would say, model of Shanti Niketan and all. They all promoted harmony with nature. Or in our epics like Mahabharata, Ramayana and all, we were worshipping a lot of trees also. So this is basically in our ethos, in our cultural ethos, we must say. The Prithvi Sukta says that earth is our mother, and sacred groves tell us that the idea of protection of nature and natural resources is seeped in our way of life. This is our way of life. So Gandhi's ideals of standing up for the last man, trusteeship and the ability of earth to provide enough for everyone's need and not for everyone's greed, it represents a continuous train of thought since time immemorial. So in our past, things are there. We have inherited our climate policy from these viewpoints, and that is why culture becomes very important. So it is also reflected in the logo of Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. Nature protects if she is protected. This is the tagline over here. Nature protects if she is protected. This in itself clearly states that we have to protect the nature. If we do not, it will respond in its own ways. Well, it did, or it has responded in its own ways multiple times. I remember 2013 Kedarnath tragedy, and thankfully, I was back from that region, particularly Kedarnath, near Kedarnath I was, and I was back from that region just 2 days before that happened. And I was able to see the fury of nature at that time. And because in front of me everything was happening, I was there in a place called Rishikesh, and I could see how the Ganga swelled up and how, a lot of things were coming in the Ganga from upside. I saw animals getting flooded, even a human dead body also I saw, and that was horrific. So nature has its own way of, giving it back to us. If we don't do that, we will have to, bear the consequences. Now, the actions taken by us. If we say that cumulative emissions is less than 4%, as I was saying, it is around 3%, 1850 to 2019, and 1.9 ton CO2 per capita emissions, India has not dissuaded itself from taking resolute domestic and international actions that benefit the planet. So, a lot of actions have been done, and contribution by India in global warming, in causing global warming or climate change, is minimal. Although, economic activity as it increases, emissions are going to increase. No doubt about the fact. Now, it has created international institutions like International Solar Alliance to focus on transition to renewable energy. India has decoupled carbon emissions from economic growth. It is one of the G20 countries that are on track to meet the nationally determined contribution targets. So, we have done a lot of things. The second point, India has decoupled carbon emissions from economic growth. It simply means that whenever economic growth has to happen, carbon emissions will be there. And that was the reason why, those developing countries of that time and the the developed countries of today, they emitted a lot during industrial revolution and all, Western Europe, America and all. And due to those emissions, economic development happened over there. But India has adopted such a strategy now that we have decoupled. We said that economic development will happen, but it will not be coupled with the emissions done by us. How? Because there are new and new, I would say, technological advancements which have happened. Like, for example, solar energy has come up. So for doing any economic activity, like for running the factories, you need electricity. Back then, electricity was produced by burning coal, fossil fuel, led to emissions. Now we can produce the electricity by, solar energy. So, and that electricity produced will contribute, or it will lead to global, economic activity. So economic growth will happen, development will happen, but emissions are not happening. This is how it has been decoupled. Next point, India is one of the G20 countries that are on track to meet the nationally determined contributions. What are these nationally determined contributions? Just a background of it I will give you. Now, when we started with the Rio Earth Summit 1992, just 5 years down the line in 1997, there was this Kyoto Protocol, COP number 3. In Kyoto Protocol, the countries were divided into developed and developing. And in the developing column were underdeveloped also. Means developed countries were a separate category and developing and underdeveloped countries were a separate category. They were called as Annexure A countries, the developed ones, Annexure B countries, developing and underdeveloped ones. There were obligations on the developed countries that you cannot emit beyond a point. And if you emit beyond a point, you have to invest in equivalent amount in the developing or underdeveloped countries. And why there was this kind of obligation on the developed countries? Because they were responsible for historical emissions. They were responsible for global warming or climate change. Whereas on the other hand, the developing countries and the underdeveloped countries did not have these kind of obligations. They could emit whatever amount they wanted. So the developed countries felt, I would say, discriminated. They said that by this way, how will we be able to tackle climate change or global warming? Because there is no obligation or no restrictions on the developing countries. So this particular bifurcation or division between developed and developing or underdeveloped did not sustain too much. Many developed countries backed out of Kyoto Protocol. Even Japan, where this Kyoto Protocol was adopted, itself backed out in 2007-8. America backed out. So this was not per se such a successful protocol, but yes, meetings after meetings did happen, and one such meeting in Paris in 2015, named as COP21, we decided to do away with the division of developed and developing. No division between developed and developing. Every country, whether developed, developing or underdeveloped, will be, giving out their INDCs. INDCs are intended nationally determined contributions. What are they? They are simply that, the countries were told that what do you intend? What are your intentions? What you can contribute to conserve the environment? According to your intentions, you decide, and obviously according to your capacity, you decide. Those were called as INDCs, intended nationally determined contributions, contributions to conserve or save the environment from global warming or climate change. So India, being a developing country, which was not responsible for historical emissions, did submit its INDCs. The INDCs submitted in 2015, there were three such INDCs. First was to reduce emission intensity. Emission intensity or carbon intensity at places, you will read about this, is nothing but the amount of carbon emitted for generating 1 unit of GDP. This is how it is defined as. To reduce emission intensity of the economy, emissions per unit of GDP, by 33 to 35% below 2005 levels. Second was 40% of installed electric power from non-fossil based energy has to be produced by 2030. Non-fossil includes renewable energy plus hydro energy plus nuclear energy, which is not using fossil fuels like coal or petroleum. So it is like this. So first point, coming back again, emission intensity had to be reduced by 33 to 35% of the 2005 levels. Means whatever emission intensity was there in 2005, from that 33 to 35% reduction has to be done by 2030. 40% of installed electric power had to be generated from non-fossil based fuels. Third was to create an additional carbon sink. Carbon sink is trees, oceans, which take in carbon and give oxygen. That is called as carbon sink. So 2.5 to 3 gigatons of carbon dioxide equivalent means this much carbon sink additionally has to be created, which can sink in 2.5 to 3 gigatons of carbon dioxide. So these were the INDCs submitted, and when India submitted these INDCs, the countries told India, are you okay? These INDCs are too ambitious. And these INDCs are not the INDCs of the developed countries also. Many developed countries are also not having such kind of ambitious INDCs. But India said, oh, it's okay, it's my job to tackle it. I will handle it, don't worry. And it was also mandated in Paris Pact of 2015 when India submitted its INDCs that you have to upgrade these INDCs 5 years down the line. Unfortunately, 5 years down the line, 2020, we all know what happened. It was COVID. But yes, the very next year, COP26 in Glasgow in 2021, a new set of INDCs were submitted. And this time, we had 5 INDCs instead of 3. In fact, we upgraded some of the existing INDCs because we said that these INDCs that we have met, it was 2021. We had to meet those INDCs by 2030, but we said that we've already met 9 years in advance. So you will see a lot of political leaders talking about it also, that India achieved its targets in 9 years in advance. So this is what they're talking about, the INDCs. Now India will increase its non-fossil fuel energy capacity to 500 gigawatts by 2030. So it is non-fossil fuel means renewable energy plus nuclear energy plus hydro energy. All these are non-fossil fuels. It will meet 50% of its energy requirement from renewable sources by 2030. So 50% of energy from renewable sources. So there is a connection between these two. First of all, here we said that 40% had to come from non-fossil based energy. Now we are saying that 500 gigawatts from non-fossil based, and the total projection that by 2030 the demand of electricity in India will be 800 gigawatts. 500 out of 800 is more than 50%. So technically speaking, more than 50% will be coming from non-fossil based fuel, and out of this 800, 50% will be coming from renewable sources. Means at least 400 gigawatt from renewable energy sources. And it can happen because today only I was reading an article where I saw that the world's largest solar park has become active in Gujarat. It is owned by none other than Adani Renewables. So this is what it is. Now the total projected carbon emissions will be reduced by 1 billion tons by 2030. Then emission intensity target was to reduce it from the 2005 levels by 33 to 35%. Now here we have upgraded it to 45%. And last was to achieve this target of net zero by 2007. Now this is the only INDC which is having a long-term target. The others are having short-term targets till 2030. So it is this thing which we need to understand. These are the INDCs of India. Now, evolution of India's climate policy. Now, we have formulated our climate policy since the 1990s after the Rio Earth Summit happened, and we have upgraded it time to time. But there are certain continuing features or intrinsic features of our climate policy. Like, we have focused on inclusive growth for all-round economic and social development, eradication of poverty, declining carbon budget, firm adherence to the foundational principles of UNFCCC. We have kept this mind in our journey towards tackling climate change or global warming. Now, India's climate policy has always been clear, consistent, and coordinated. India has been clear that the problem of climate change is the result of over-exploitation of natural resources by developed countries. India has been consistently a strong voice of the global south. Global south is developing and underdeveloped countries. Since we are one of them, and we have, pitched concerns over there at the global forum on behalf of the global south, that is developing and underdeveloped countries. The CBDRRC, that is common but differentiated responsibilities and respective capabilities. This is the principle which was adopted in UNFCCC. And now coming back to Kyoto Protocol, where I said that countries were divided into two annexures, Annexure A and Annexure B. They were divided because the developed countries were responsible for historical emissions. But yes, it was also accepted or acknowledged that the developing countries will do their bit, whatever is it there in their capacity, they will do to conserve the environment. Common but differentiated responsibility. Common responsibility to conserve the environment, but in a differentiated manner. The developed countries will do more, and there are certain obligations on developed countries, and there are not on the developing and underdeveloped countries. So this principle, India advocated too much in UNFCCC and got it passed as well. Now, this is a remarkable or a landmark, I would say, action plan, which was launched in the year 2008. The National Action Plan on Climate Change. Now, in adherence to this National Action Plan on Climate Change, there are 8 goals. I will just discuss these 8 goals as well in NAPCC. The states and UTs also have launched their respective state action plan on climate change in line with this. More than 23 line ministers at the center and similar stakeholders in the states take part in decision-making process. That is why, our climate policy is coordinated, we say. Because center, states, ministers from the center, ministers from the state, they are aligning with each other for their policies. Now, the 8 missions under this National Action Plan on Climate Change. First is National Solar Mission. Second is National Mission on Sustainable Habitat. Third is National Mission for Sustaining the Himalayan Ecosystem. National Mission for Enhanced Energy Efficiency. National Water Mission. National Mission on Strategic Knowledge for Climate Change. National Mission for a Green India. And lastly, National Mission for Sustainable Agriculture. So 8 sub-missions under National Action Plan on Climate Change these are. And UPSC has asked a question from here. Now, we'll see the evolution of India's climate policy post 2008, also post the launch of NAPCC. India is a world leader in climate action today. So, as we saw through INDCs, upgraded INDCs, and very few countries upgraded their INDCs. India was among them. And the updated INDCs are also very ambitious. India has added 2 more C's to its climate policy, that is confidence and convenient action. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's slogan of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, Sabka Vishwas and Sabka Prayas is in line with India's climate action. Because India's climate policy will not be successful without Sabka Prayas, Sabka Vishwas, Sabka Vikas and Sabka Saath. It will not be successful. So this slogan is also intrinsic in that. India has reflected this confidence building in building global institutions. India in the last few years have built multiple global institutions like International Solar Alliance, which is an alliance of more than 100 countries. Basically, these countries are there in this alliance to promote the growth of solar energy. It is headquartered in Gurugram, and many African countries are part of it. These countries are called as sunshine countries, which are completely or partially in the tropics. So India, advocated this in 2015 in the Paris Pact only. India said that we want to launch this International Solar Alliance, and we have launched this. Then Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure. This was launched in 2020-21, I guess. And this is nothing but an, I would say, expert hub. Expert hub means a place where expertise is there, knowledge is there, a knowledge hub it is. Knowledge hub for giving or disseminating information and knowledge to the countries to how to make their infrastructure disaster resilient. Infrastructure has to be disaster resilient because disasters are happening more and more. So we cannot afford if we build an infrastructure and that is damaged by the disasters. A small example over here. Earlier we had overhead cables. Now we are undergrounding the cables. Now if any flood comes, cyclone comes, or any, I would say, winds blow at a faster speed, anything happens, any kind of disaster happens, that infrastructure will not be destroyed or will not be impacted. So this is how we can make the infrastructure disaster resilient, and this kind of expertise is given by this. Then India is also one of the initiators of Global Biofuels Alliance along with Brazil and USA, and this was launched in 2023 G20 summit, which happened here in New Delhi. So these global institutions India has given. India along with Sweden heads the leadership group for industry transition. So the confidence is being reflected over here. India is coming up at the global stage, leading and forming these kind of institutions. India has also launched this lifestyle for environment, Mission Life. This happened in Glasgow to COP26 2021, where India said that it is going to be a mass campaign to generate awareness among the people to adopt sustainable lifestyles. Sustainable lifestyles, you're going out of the room, switch off the lights, fans, ACs. More and more, opt for public transport. These are, sustainable lifestyles. And if we do this bit, this is going to save a lot of, I would say, energy, and a lot of, I would say, conservation can happen. And India aims to make it a global campaign. So this is what India has done. Now, next is India's long-term low emission development strategy, LTLEDS. Now, on one side, we've studied about INDCs. INDCs are short-term goals. We have to achieve them till 2030. Apart from INDCs, there are long-term goals also which had to be submitted by the countries, and India submitted this LTLEDS at COP27 in 2022 in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt. Now, this is basically the Environment Minister, Mr. Bhupendra Yadav, who submitted it. The National Hydrogen Mission was launched. We covered it last week only, and this aims to, make India a global hub for green hydrogen. Then, threefold increase in nuclear capacity by 2032. This also we have done a few days ago. Achieving an ethanol blending target of 20% by 2025. This we are going to achieve. E20 petrol, ethanol blending in petrol has to be done. Maximizing the use of electric vehicles, increase public transport. Increased climate finance to be provided by developed nations. Developed nations have the obligation of providing climate finance to the developing and underdeveloped countries. This happened in COP15 of UNFCCC in 2009, Copenhagen. So India aims to take a lot of money also from there. Then the long-term strategy aims at keeping global temperatures well below 2 degrees Celsius and ambitiously 1.5 degrees Celsius by the century end. Now this is X plus 1.5 degrees Celsius target. We've discussed about it more. So this is basically, the long-term goals which India has, and India aims to be there at net zero. Net zero simply means whatever amount we are emitting, the same amount we are sinking in of carbon. So that is net zero, and India aims to be there at net zero by 2070. So certain long-term, I would say, policies have to be done, and these long-term goals are called as long-term low emission development strategy, which was submitted by India in COP27. Then, when I talk about India's solar energy capacity, it has increased by more than 26 times. Now, remember that INDC, that half of India's electricity generation has to come from renewable energy by 2030. And that is 400 gigawatt has to come from renewable energy, because 800 gigawatt is the projected demand by 2030. So, India's solar energy capacity has increased by more than 26 times, and wind energy capacity has more than doubled in the last 10 years. Now that world's largest solar park, which I have been talking about, which is owned by Adani, which is now operational in Gujarat, it is on the Gujarat-Pakistan border almost. The border is just 1 kilometer away from there. Actually, it is a hybrid renewable energy park where solar panels are installed. Most of the electricity generated will be from the solar panels, but some windmills are also installed over there. So India is going for that. It now has the fourth largest installed capacity of wind, fifth largest solar in the world, achieving a target of 40% installed electric capacity from non-fossil fuels in November 2021. Means 40% we have achieved from non-fossil fuels in 2021. This was one of our targets in the first set of INDCs, if you remember. And we achieved it in 2021, and the target year was 2030, because in the first set of INDCs also the target year was 2030. It is 9 years ahead of schedule, and then increasing the target to 50%. We have done that. So all this we have done, and by doing all this, we definitely are in a position to give a message to the world. We are, and we should be, because being a developing country, having no obligations on us, still we did that. मैसेज देना तो बनता है. So India recognizes that development and environment are two sides of the same coin and must be taken together for all-round holistic development. However, this does not mean that if development will happen, emissions will happen, environment will get degraded. That we have decoupled. Now, we also are promoting Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam, one earth, one world and one future, which simply means that this earth is one. We should tackle global problems collectively as a family, because the world is one family. Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam stands for that. And one of the problems, global problems today, is global warming or climate change. And it is a fact. You might be experiencing it, but you might not be aware about it, that this is happening due to global warming or climate change. But actually that is impacting our lives. It is only you have to educate yourself, make yourself aware, then you will understand that, oh, this is happening due to climate change or global warming. One country only or a few handful of countries tackling global warming or climate change will not tackle global warming or climate change. We need to be collectively there. Developed countries have that moral responsibility, and developed countries like to school the developing countries. You should do this, you should do that. They never take it on themselves that what should they do. Actually, it is them who has created this menace. So they should be leading from the front in mitigation strategies or adaptation strategies. Then only we will be able to tackle climate change or global warming. Then only we will be able to restrict global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius or 2 degrees Celsius till the year 2100. We will only then be able to make a better future or gift a better future to our coming generations. So this we have to act now. So that is it, and India is doing a superb job in this. I hope this continues. Now we are moving on to the MCQs. Which of the following statements are correct? First is India submitted its second set of INDCs in COP27 of UNFCCC. India submitted its LTLDs in COP26 of UNFCCC. It is completely factual. Let's see how many of you are able to recall. Second is, which of the following is not classified as a mission under the National Action Plan on Climate Change? First is National Solar Mission. Second is National Mission on Enhanced Energy Efficiency. The third is National Green Hydrogen Mission, the National Mission for a Green India, the fourth option. How many of the following statements are correct with respect to the second INDC submitted by India? So these statements we have to look from the viewpoint of second set of INDCs which we submitted. I'm not going to tell you when we submitted because you will be able to correctly answer the previous question. So India will increase its non-fossil energy capacity to 500 gigawatts by 2030. It will meet 40% of its energy requirement from renewable sources by 2030. The total projected carbon emissions will be reduced by 2 billion tons from now through 2030. And fourth is, the emission intensity of its economy will be brought down to less than 33 to 35%. Only one statement is correct. Only two statements are correct. Only three statements are correct. Or all of them are correct. You have to answer in this way. The fourth is, consider the following statements and mark the correct one. The developed countries are more responsible for global warming than the developing countries. Very simple it is. China is the world's largest emitter of CO2. In India, excess resource use is one of the drivers of global warming. How many of them are correct? Only 1 and 2 are correct. Only 1 and 3 are correct. Only 1 is correct, or all of the above are correct. So, by seeing the options, 1 is correct because it is there in all the options. The game is now between 2 and 3. So, this is basically it from my end in today's session. I will be meeting you tomorrow now with more such informative news pieces. Till then, you guys very well know what to do. Keep studying, keep reading, keep writing, keep watching the videos, and most importantly, keep revising. Namaste, Jai Hind.